Roads and pathways can provide a beautiful detail that connects your world together and makes it seem more traveled, connected, and alive. And as simple as they are, their organic nature can make them seem intimidating and add to some confusion about how we handle these things. So that's what I want to talk about in this video, is some basic rules of thumb, some guidelines, some tips and tricks on how to improve our roads and pathways. From how we make texture, to how we handle the inclines and the changes in elevation, to block palettes and landscaping. But it all starts with the blocks that you choose. And now what color or gradient or texture that you choose for your road is irrelevant. But some things to keep in mind is that smooth blocks inherently look more traveled, like people's feet have walked over the stone so much that it's become smooth compared to the bricks. So smooth textures are nice to use for the center of the road, whereas rough textures or mossy textures are great to use on the outsides in the gutter, because if people walked over moss constantly, the moss would die. Like the plants themselves would be killed by people's feet. So regardless of what blocks you want to use, there are some basic guidelines that we can follow when it comes to handling texture. The more organic, crazy, or contrasted the texture of an individual block, the better that block looks as an outliner, rather than an interior block. And if we don't handle our texture intentionally, and we place it randomly throughout, like this road right here, something about it just looks wrong. But on the other hand, if we cut the texture dramatically, like this road has a clear center line and a clear outline, it does look more intentional or correct, but it's popped out from the surrounding landscape. It doesn't look natural. It doesn't necessarily look like it belongs. Whereas if we blur the two, where we have randomized texture that blends the outline and the interior together, this road looks more like it belongs. It looks more connected to the surrounding landscape. And it's because of the way we handle the texture. One basic rule of thumb is to have a core block that's going to be the majority of the center of your road. Preferably a block that has intentional texture or that is smooth. So in this example, we have stone and then stone bricks. Then we need to pick some outlining blocks. Preferably things that are more organic, more sharp, more contrasted. These will be the edges of the road, the parts of the road that have been damaged but no one bothered to fix, the parts of the road where nature is creeping in, degrading the integrity of the road. Think about roads and sidewalks and pathways in real life. You have what material the road was originally made out of, whether it's bricks or cobblestone or asphalt. But then the center of that road, the parts of it that are more traveled than others, have been smoothed out from friction. The friction has worn away that texture. Whereas the outsides of the road, the gutters, they're full of potholes and gravel, and there's some plants growing in the cracks, because no one ever travels on the side of the road. Nothing kills the plants. No one ever fixes the cracks and potholes on the side. So we can apply these observations to the roads and pathways that we build in Minecraft to make them look more natural, regardless of your block palette. Like here we have glowstone, glazed terracotta, and obsidian. This should never work, but because the glowstone is the majority of the interior block, being cut by a few glazed, and then being outlined by obsidian, it looks okay. It looks like a pathway. And so the same with all of these palettes, all of these block styles, they follow these rules, where we picked a block to use as our centermost block, where the majority of the center of the road is the same block. And then we have an outlining block to outline the road as a whole. And then in between our core center block and our outlining block, we have a little bit of texture to break up the solidity. And regardless of what blocks you use for your road, even if you used every color of concrete, as long as you have a clear center material that the road was made out of, it looks okay. There's also the concept of the surrounding landscape's effect on the road. Like if you're building a road through the desert or through podzol, it's different than if you're building a road through grass. The way that the colors interact with each other changes depending on what is surrounding the road. So these are things to keep in mind, especially when it comes to the outlining block for the pathway. Some outlining blocks will blend in to the surrounding landscape, like if you used mossy cobblestone next to grass or next to moss. But if you used mossy cobblestone as an outliner in the desert, that would have a huge contrast. The green of the moss compared to the yellow of the sand. A lot of it comes down to what you want the road to say. Do you want it to blend in to the surrounding landscape? Do you want it to look unmaintained? Or do you want it to stick out from the surrounding landscape and look very created or intentional? So be sure to examine the road from far away to see how it blends and interacts with the surrounding landscape. But we also need to look at the road up close. We need to walk down it and see if anything sticks out. Like that random moss block just looks out of place and disconnected. Or some of these cracks are right next to smooth blocks and they look just wrong. Whereas this road, we handle the texture very intentionally. I walked this road many times and changed the things that stick out. So it all now just blends together as you walk by. There's no random cracks or random moss blocks that are disconjointed from the rest of the road. And we can take texture a step further and create descriptions using the texture. Like here we have a cluster of moss variants, so we bone milled the grass right next to that section to make it look overgrown. Or here we have no moss variants at all. So we used a shovel to get rid of the grass next to that section. So like nothing grows here. There's no grass, there's no moss. Maybe the ground is salted or has lots of clay. It adds descriptive properties. This goes back to handling texture in clusters rather than fully random. Having a cluster of moss blocks makes that section look more overgrown, and then we can add some extra grass to accentuate that. But aside from the texture, the orientation of the road also interacts with the surrounding landscape. Like if the road suddenly curves off to the right, well, maybe there's a reason it curved off to the right. Maybe there's a cluster of rocks there that people didn't want to get rid of, so they just built the road around the cluster of rocks. Remember what a road is. It's a way to get from point A to point B. So roads don't curve for no reason. Roads will curve to avoid things that are hard to traverse, such as mountains, hills, clusters of rocks, lakes, trees. But even if the road isn't curving around major landscaping features, it's still interacting with the terrain. Like this bad texture road. Looks like the grass is kind of growing on top of the road. The grass is overtaking it. Whereas this squiggle road, because the interior texture matches the outer shape, it looks like it was built in a squiggly line on purpose. It doesn't really look like the grass is growing on top of the road because the grass cut in is not interrupting any of the texture. And so how we handle not only the outline of the road, but the internal texture as well, will define what is being said about that road or what is happening to that road. Like a straight road that's perfectly straight. It looks very forced. Like people are actually going in there and edging the road to make sure the grass doesn't overtake it. But if that straight road has lots of texture, it doesn't make much sense because the texture makes the road look damaged or destroyed, but it being straight makes it look maintained. So it's like conflicting with itself. Whereas if we just add a few blocks along the outside to make it look like the grass is overtaking the road, well, then that matches the texture that we have given the road. And so there's a time and a place for straight roads, there's a time and a place for wiggly forced roads, and there's a time and a place for natural roads. It just depends on what type of road you want, or what you want the road to say. All of these different aspects influence each other, so we need to handle them in a uniform way. If the texture doesn't match the outline, it looks strange. Or if the outline doesn't match the landscape, it looks strange. All of these different aspects either fight each other or work together to either take away from or accentuate the build as a whole. And the conversation doesn't just stop with the road. It goes on to the surrounding landscape. Like water naturally collects in this puddle, so there's more plants and more moss here. And they built the road around it because people didn't want to get their feet wet. Or like there was a big rock over here, and some of the dirt in the nearby area can't stick to the underground stone, so it gets washed away and causes some potholes. And then we have some fencing to make sure that people don't hurt themselves on the jagged terrain or the potholes. These imaginative conversations that we can construct end up adding content and adding a story to the build as a whole. It makes it look more natural when all is said and done. Now, when it comes to inclines, hills, and staircases, we can use this same methodology. That should it be dug into the hill, or should it be placed on top of the hill? Should it be concave or convex? And the general rule of thumb is that we should dig it into the side of the hill, not place it on top. Because think of what happens when hundreds of people walk this road. Every single set of feet kicks a pebble down the side of the hill, kicks some dirt down the side of the hill. It digs in to the earth. It creates an erosion. Whereas if we lay the road on top of the hill where it sticks out, it just doesn't look natural. Because roads are a river, just for people. Instead of water, you have traffic. Roads will follow the path of least resistance. They will avoid large obstacles, just like a river. And the traffic of people that use this road will cause erosion, just like water in a river. The more traveled the road is, the more worn down it will be. The more erosion will have taken place. And that's why stairways placed on top of the hill just look out of place. Now, one exception to this is an intentional stairway, something made out of a completely different material. So it's not like the road just happened to go up this hill, but that someone actually came in and built a staircase in the sections of this road to help you traverse this hill. And this artificial construct prevents erosion. So no matter how many people walk up and down this staircase, it will never start digging into the terrain because it was built. Now, maybe over time, it gets more and more damaged and worn out. And at that point, maybe it does erode a bit. And that's where we can utilize texture to make something look destroyed or old, traveled. Really, it goes back to what you want the road to say. Do you want a natural path cut into a hill or an unnatural construct? Think about in real life. Staircases that go up a hill usually stick out. But pathways that go up the side of a hill are usually dug in. And so it depends on if you want the pathway to be more natural or if you want it to be artificial, whether you should dig into the hill or not. With all of that in mind, let's build an example road. Now, even though we talked about all these different things, about how you should imagine the landscape and blah-de-blah-de-blah, it all starts off exactly the same. just mapping out where we want the road to go, and then digging out some space in order to build it. So in our ditch, once we have it dug, we're going to start off by picking our core block. What block do we want the center of the road to be? In this case, we're going to use regular stone. And we're just going to place a line of this core block along the center of where the road will be. And after we've placed a line, we can go back through and place more of it to shape the road. Like maybe we want it to extend out more in this direction, so it curves out farther from the tree. And then once most of the center is full of our core block, we're going to place some texture blocks around it. In this case, we're going to use regular stone bricks. So it's like the road used to be built out of stone bricks, but people walking down it over the years has worn out the texture and turned it into regular stone. And as we build, keep an eye out for patterns that arise. Like here I accidentally made a checkerboard pattern that was very, very noticeable. So if we notice patterns, just go ahead and break out some blocks and switch them around so that there's no longer a pattern there. And then continue on with our texture blocks to accent our core block. Now this texture block should also be similar in nature to our core block. They should blend together. But now we want to pick an outlining block, something that contrasts with the rest of it. So in this case, we're going to use tuff because it kind of looks more destroyed. It has a more organic texture. It's more contrasty. And so it looks like the edges of the road have been worn away by nature. You know, some of it's cracked more, and the grass and the rain has taken a toll on the sides of the road. And now we're going to use some mossy cobble in patches to blend the road into the surrounding grass. And again, when it comes to especially mossy things or textury things, it's nice to handle them in patches. So rather than placing moss throughout the entire road, we're going to place patches and sections in certain parts of the side. And then we're going to go back and just tweak things that don't look right. Like I didn't like those lines of bricks, so we're going to switch some of them around so that it looks less noticeable. And that's all there is to it. From here, it's just about going back, polishing, changing a block that you don't like, making reasons for the path to be where it is. Like, why didn't the path just go straight on this side of the tree? Why is it curving all the way around the tree? Well, we can add a reason. We can build a little pond right here. Because it's like, well, they wanted to build the road around the tree because there was a pond in the way. So we're just going to toss some stairs down in a hole and then flood it with water. Or you could make more custom trees, or you could make divots in the ground that aren't full of water, or you could make rocks. All sorts of different terraforming decorations. And that's the amazing thing about this process, is that you can build anything that you want to. You can use bone meal, you can make rocks and lampposts and trees, and it doesn't matter. It's very freeing. Once you get into the flow, it's nice to not have to really think too much about precision. You know, just digging a hole and filling it with stairs, or like making a pile of rocks and like place some moss on top of it. All of these things are very simple. They can't look wrong, really. You know, so whether it's custom trees or lakes or lampposts or walls, or you can go crazy with this process. It's a great change to the rigidity of building castles and houses and structures and things. Because it doesn't matter how complex or how simple you make the surrounding decor. You can just build a random wall for no reason, break out half the wall, and switch it with cobblestone to make it look like part of the wall fell down. It's a great opportunity to just build whatever comes to mind. Just build mushrooms and flowers and walls and lampposts and rocks and trees and lakes and potholes, and you know, it doesn't matter. It's very freeing. Like, all of these things are serving a purpose for directing your road. But like, you just build the road first and then add these things afterward to give reasons of why the road went in the direction that it did, or why the road has certain types of texture in different places. And you can just play with this and change it as you go along. You can even change your block palette in certain sections of the road. Like if there's a house near the road, well, you can make part of that road wood. Like the dude who lives in that house likes to maintain the road in his little section. So he puts down some planks to fill in potholes occasionally. Or you can build artificial hills, or, it's so freeing once you get over the intimidation of it being so organic and non-structured, and learn a few of these basic rules. That like, if we just have a core center block, outlining blocks, if we dig our roads into the side of hills when going up an incline, and if we handle the orientation of the road intentionally by creating landscape features that the road had to curve around. And once we get comfortable with this, it can be so much fun just to spend a day mindlessly making pathways and terraforming. But that's all we got for this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again soon. I've been working on some builds to tutorial out, so I'm excited to get those done. But always remember that you are totally awesome, and above all, don't forget to have fun. Bye-bye.